Well, the spiritual truth that I'm working with today is that love is the bridge to everywhere. Love is the bridge to everywhere. Today's spiritual truth comes from the Persian poet Rumi. In order to cross that bridge, though, we need a better understanding of how to give love and how to receive love. In English, it seems that we have only one word for love. And so we use it when we're talking to our beloved, I love you. And we use it when we have a cupcake. I love you, cupcake. You know, we need more words to better understand and explain our love in our hearts. The Greeks, they have this down. They have 6 words for love. Eros, romantic love. Philia, deep friendship. Ludus, or playful love. Agape, love for everyone. Pragma, or long-standing love. Philusia, or love of the self. Now, today is Valentine's Day, which most often focuses on Eros, which makes all the folks in a relationship very happy because it's a reminder they can look forward to cards and candy and flowers, and all the folks not in a relationship unhappy because any flowers and candy and cards coming their way are most probably going to be self-bought, which, by the way, I recommend highly. I'm not going to focus only on Eros today, but I want you to know I think it's a beautiful love. Because look, when you find the love of your life, you have also just found the best spiritual teacher you're ever going to have in your life. As Rumi says, love wants to do us a great favor. She'll hold us upside down and shake us, all the nonsense out of us. Today, I want to talk about, though, agape love, which in my mind includes all the other 5 kinds of love. Love for everyone. Jesus said, yeah, you know what? I want you to pay attention to the 10 commandments that Moses brought down from the mountaintop. But when he was asked what the most important commandment was, it wasn't about the shall nots. It was love thy God with all thy mind, thy heart, and thy soul. And love thy neighbor as thyself. Jesus was a major metaphysician, and he told his people to keep their priorities straight. Keep your eye on what you want, not on what you don't want in your life. Jesus understood and wanted us to understand that he didn't have to give us a commandment to not steal, because if you love your neighbor as yourself, you wouldn't want to steal anyway. You know, in all the years that I've done counseling, I've never met a man who beat his wife and loved himself. So let's break this down, because that's what we do at CSA. Love thy God with thy mind, thy heart, and thy soul, all of it. At CSA, we believe that God is an energy for good that we can use. That energy is introduced to us as spiritual principles. God is joy. God is abundance and creativity and connection and so much more. What's not to love? And when we love this energy, this essence with all of our mind, our body, our soul, we bring it into our lives and the lives of those around us. We bring it to our families. We bring it to our workplaces and our communities. Loving good should be the easiest thing in the world for us to do. In this theology, we say it's all good and it's all God. Now remember, good and happy may not be the same thing. But we believe that nothing is done to us and everything is done for us. Even the loss of loved ones, even the loss of a job, even the loss of your bank account is in service to your soul's growth. Many of the things in my personal history brought me pain. But when I stopped fighting it, when I started looking at my part in it, usually weeks, sometimes months, sometimes even years after, then I can see that I grew from it. And one of the great things about God is that God tells us exactly how to love him, her, they. Most people want you to guess how to love them. They think you should instinctively know how to love them. And they get mad if you get it wrong. Look, God's not having it. I'm going to tell you, God says, I'm going to tell you exactly how to love me. with all your mind, your body, and your soul. So except for some periods of blaming God for my troubles, loving God as an energy for good has not been that hard for most of us. Much harder is loving our neighbor as thyself. And we all have work to do in loving ourselves better. I see so much loathing. I see so much self-doubt in the world, so much negative self-talk. If there was ever a giant shout-out to increase the love you have for yourself, this is it. If you're constantly down on yourself, if you're always second-guessing yourself, if you deal with issues of deservability all the time, if you think you're stupid or ugly or in any way limited, you will find it very difficult to love your neighbor. And learning to love yourself, no matter what you've done, no matter where you've been, or not done, or not been, is one of the most powerful and selfless spiritual practices you can do. Now, here's the thing. When Jesus, with Jesus and his teaching, there was no wiggle room. There are no loopholes to this idea that love is the bridge to everywhere. The commandment is to love thy neighbor as thyself. And when he said that, a so-called expert in Jewish law in the crowd asks, well, Jesus, who is my neighbor actually? See, because he, like all of us, was looking for a loophole. Jesus, surely you don't mean my neighbor the Republican, my neighbor the Democrat, or a Proud Boy, or Marjorie Taylor Greene. Jesus, surely you don't mean my neighbor who came home drunk and beat up his wife and kids. Jesus, surely you don't mean my neighbor's son who's in jail for child molestation. Jesus, surely you don't mean those people who are now harassing Asian Americans because of COVID. Jesus answers him with a story we find in Luke. And remember, whenever Jesus was going to deliver a lesson, he knew better than to just say, yes, that's all the people I mean. He knew that to bring a story to our lives, we would listen to it maybe without rejecting it right away. So let's review the story. A Jew is walking on a trip from Jerusalem to Jericho when he is beaten, stripped of his clothes, and left for dead on the side of a road. By chance, a rabbi comes by, and when he saw the man lying on the street, naked, beaten, he crosses the street and walks on. And then another man, a holy man who worked at the temple, a Levite, walked over, looked down, saw the man beaten without clothes, stepped over him and walked on. And hasn't that happened to all of us? We are down, maybe we lost our job, maybe we were jilted, maybe we were banished from our house because we were transgender or gay, maybe we started a new business venture that failed miserably, and the very people we thought would help us just kept walking by. Isn't it shocking when you're bleeding out and some friend of you sees you, talks to you, and so as they're walking out the door says, hey, you need anything, call me. They don't do it right there. But most of us have been on the other side too. We've been on the walking away side. So before you get all pursed lips, let's take a look at our own behavior. What condition of life is so painful for you to look at in another? Women who are divorced report that they become invisible to their couple friends. They're not asked out anymore to the bridge parties or to the parties of any kind. Perhaps it's too scary for some people who may be at risk in their own weddings, their own marriages, to look at. A student in one of my classes recently told me that the very people she thought were her best friends stopped coming around or calling her whenever her mother was in an active mental health event. When someone you know gets turned down for a promotion, do you cross the side of the road so you don't have to think about what to say to them? Well, fortunately for the beaten and left man, things began to pick up. A Samaritan comes along, helps the man up, puts his own coat on the man, lifts him onto his donkey, and takes him to the nearest town's inn, pays the innkeeper with his own money to house him during his convalescence. Now, because of this story, we often think of the word Samaritan as somebody who does good deeds for strangers. In fact, if you ask somebody if they know about the story of the Samaritan, they will always say, or often say, "Do you mean the Good Samaritan?" But that word biblically describes a clan that was despised by the Jews and vice versa. Just think of all the people who despise each other. Not only groups of people, but individuals, even in your own family and in your workplace. Here's going to be the most important thing I say all morning. If you can only take one thing away from this message, let it be this. Love is not a feeling. Love is a decision. Feelings come and go. Just think how many people you have loved, and you would never tell your best friend you were used to be in love with them. We use terms like, I've moved on, or what was I thinking? Or sometimes we even say, boy, I dodged a bullet with that one. Or just because we're skin doesn't mean we're kin. Always, always, always move your body away from folks who might harm you. Always, always, always move your mind away from people who might harm you. Don't stay around people who are mean to you. But leave love in them, in your heart for them. What were you thinking? What you were thinking at some point about that person is that you recognized something in that individual that was sacred. And you did not dodge a bullet. People are not bullets. They were part of your journey. And for that alone, you're called to love them. Love is not a feeling. Love is a decision. Decide to love them and allow for that possibility to become manifest in your heart and your mind. You have a powerful God that can transform any situation through the power of your mind. We've come to be familiar with that term terrorist cells, but what we've heard less of and are still active are peace cells. There are groups of Palestinians and Israelites who are coming together to decide to love each other. Happy Valentine's Day. That's agape love. Northern Irish and Brits coming together to decide to love each other. Happy Valentine's Day. That's agape love. Indians and Pakistanis coming together in peace cells to love each other. Happy Valentine's Day. That's agape love. Is it too far-fetched for we metaphysicians to put our intentions out for Antifa and MAGA folks to come together and learn to love each other? It's not easy, but it's doable. These are decisions which aren't easy, but they go against the grain of cultural wisdom, just like the Samaritans did. That's what we're called to do. Go against cultural wisdom and care for one another before we understand them. I grew up in a strict Italian Catholic family with strong commitments to the way women should look and behave in the world. And although my mother would say I missed the entire lesson, there are some parts that have stuck. See, that kind of suspicion we have for other people is so subtle. I have a reaction to women who have tattoos all over their body. To me, that says something. Do I despise them? Of course not. But do I have to decide to love them before I know them? Yes, it's ingrained. If you're honest, you will find someone or ones in which you have some reaction, and you can decide to love them. Easy? No, but you can. One of the greatest things that's coming out of this work that we're doing together of 10 weeks to racial healing is that we're beginning to uncover what it is that keeps us from loving one another. And they're usually messages from very young. Now, Jesus asks the expert, who is the beaten man's neighbor now? And the expert replies, the one who showed him compassion. See, Jesus was reminding us that our neighbor, loving our neighbor as ourselves, is a gateway to heaven because it's spiritual truth. Your neighbor is you. We are all simply individuations of the presence of God. We say here at CSA, we are God-informed. But to be like God, you have to learn to love like God. You have to love people who don't look like you, don't vote like you, don't dress like you, don't live where you live. You don't have to vote for them. You don't have to invite them over for dinner. But before you decide any of that, give them your love. Because love has no loopholes. Let's take this message into prayer. Knowing that there is only one power, and it is the power called love. That's its major name, love. Big love. And that love runs through us all the time. It never stops. No matter what we've done, no matter where we've been, no matter where we are right now. If you're watching from Sing Sing, you are filled with love. If you are watching from the highest mansion, you are filled with love. For love escapes no one. I give thanks to that. I give thanks to the Great One for always saying yes. I release this word into the law, and together we say, and so it is.